Hey everyone, it's Tad Hargrave from Marketing for Hippies. Very excited about this conversation. I'm here with my old friend Kevin Gillese, who's in Atlanta, but he's from Edmonton. We started doing improv together in 2000
Ish.
ish. Yeah, a little before it because Improvaganza was 2000.
Yeah, I mean, I first started hanging out at Rapid Fire in '96,
Okay.
but I wasn't really. I mean, I was a teenager. I wasn't really good enough to be in the. I had to work my way up. So somewhere between '96 and let's say '98, I wiggled my way in. So
Yeah, yeah. I started in '92, I guess. Yeah. But anyway, so we did improv for a while, and then Kevin was artistic director at Rapid Fire Theater in Edmonton, and then Atlanta snatched him from us, and he moved down to Atlanta, where he became the artistic director for 10 years, I think, at Dad's Garage in Atlanta, which is sort of the sister company of Rapid Fire in Edmonton, and of course comes back in the summers to do the Edmonton Fringe. But the reason I wanted to talk with Kevin is because I think last time last summer when Kevin was here, we were at Blowers in Grafton on White, and we were chatting. Arlen was there, and Kevin was telling me a bit about how he'd worked very hard to get more diversity into the company and into the shows, into the sort of improv scene, because it's just the the biggest open secret about the improv scene is it's mostly white dudes. Um, especially in North America, it's just a huge white dude scene. And then there's some women, but it's not as much. And that's just kind of the thing. And I think a lot of theater companies have grappled with this, and some more successfully than others. But I think Kevin did a really amazing job of it in Atlanta. And so the connection here with marketing is I've got this hub marketing, a 30-day program coming up about this. And the idea with hub marketing is that so there's three levels of marketing. There's kind of a cold, a warm, and a hot level. The cold level of marketing is you approach somebody like a stranger. They don't know your name. They're not glad you came. There's no trust. There's no relationship. And you're trying to convince them to do something. And that level is hard, ultimately drains you. Then there's the warm level. And the warm level is you, instead of approaching people directly, you think, well, who are the people I want to reach are already connected with, and you connect with those people, and it's a kind of triangulate. Or you think the people I want to reach, where do they hang out, and you go to those places, or what are the magazines they read, or what are the events they attend, what are the coffee shops they go. You just kind of figure out the hubs of where you would find them. You work that hub, and then the hot level is you've become a hub, and everyone in that scene knows, oh, this is like, oh, you have migraines. That's the person you go to for migraines. Everyone just kind of knows it. And so I feel like what a lot of improv companies do is they do this cold level with the diversity thing. Like they see a random person of color and it's like, do you like improv? And they try to, rope them in, or they, it's a kind of individual one-on-one thing. And I just got the feeling from what you're talking about that you were doing more of this warm thing where you were really building relationships with some of these communities over time, and looking for ways that there could be a fit. And so with that, setting the table in that way, Kevin, it's really, really good to have you here.
thank you so much. Yeah, I this like hub kind of concept. I'm just starting to barely wrap my mind around it. So
Mm.
I'll need your help in kind of translating it, and
Sure.
anything that we come up, how it relates to the hub stuff. I'll really rely on you, but I'll
Sure.
try to share like experiences or anecdotes or
Yeah.
thoughts that might be
Maybe we
helpful.
could start with, like, how was, when you arrived at Dad's Garage, what was the state of the nation there?
Dad's was almost completely white and almost completely male, as far as the artist base, um, and that carried over into staff,
Mm.
audiences, volunteers, and board of directors. We're a nonprofit. So
And I'll just pause here because for people who don't know, Atlanta is not a white city. This is not a city of like all white people. What are the demographics in Atlanta?
I'm gonna ballpark here, but I'm gonna guess it's about 60% black, 40% white, or probably more like 60% black, 30% white, and then 10% like Hispanic and Asian
Yeah.
and stuff. So like it's a black city.
Right.
And one of the stated goals for the company when I came in, they're like, this is what you're tasked with accomplishing, was national recognition. Um, and so kind of the first thought I had was, I was like, well, that's not going to happen with the white comedy group out of Atlanta. Like, are you crazy?
How unique. Oh my God. Two white men standing on stage talking.
It just, to aspire to represent Atlanta on the national stage with an all-white company seemed like beyond absurd. It
Right.
seemed like irresponsible and it's just never going to work. So time to get to work on trying to diversify the company. But one of the things that's maybe an important factor to recognize is that in an improv company, the group dynamic is like a big part of your secret to your success. You can't just fire half the cast and replace them. That would not work on an artistic level, and it's not the way that the culture of the organization or the community is like. So like that's just not an option. You can't do that. And moreover, we have an ensemble kind of model whereby the group themselves elect in new members based on votes. So in order to have success, long-term sustainable success with diversifying the organization, it would have to be like a massaged process, not something that you just try to knee-jerk. I also realized that, or at least my opinion was and still is, that if we want to diversify the staff, the board, the audiences, and the volunteers and the students, you have to start on stage. Like that's kind of the core of everything. And so you have to get diverse talent. And at that time, I literally was just like, I need women and Black people on this stage so that we can start to create a space that is welcoming to not just white guys that feel, oh, this is for me,
Now, why? I'm curious, because some people say, well, you got to start with the leadership. That's the most important place to start. You just kind of start from the top down on that one. And what made you decide to go with the stage first?
Well, I guess if they had started with leadership and had been thinking just about people whose head is in the right place, they'd already done that because they already hired me.
Right.
And so the reason I thought about the stage first was because I don't know how to put this into more like heady terms or to like try to put some like faux intellectual spin on it. I'll just say like the performers are funny and cool and you want to see them and talk to them and be like them. And that's it. It's like what's cool and funny and engaging and like, it's the performers. The performers are the reason the volunteers show up. They think the performers are so great that they'll volunteer so that they don't have to pay for tickets so that they can come hang out all the time. It's not the form, it's not the environment. I mean, those things can contribute. I really do think at the end of the day, it's that charismatic talent that emanates out of the performers.
And yes, so much of it you were saying like about the vibe too, that with improv companies, so much of it is about that feel between the performers and the vibe that gets created on stage. And because we've all seen improv shows where there's no vibe, there's no fun, there's no mischief. You watch it, I call it good prov. It's like they follow all the rules. They said yes, they advanced, they accepted, they didn't do any of the bad things, and yet it's so flat. There's nothing there. Versus when you see a show and you can feel the vibe and you can tell that everyone, and you see this with movies too, where it's like, man, that cast is having fun with this movie. They're having a good time, and the audience picks up on that. I mean, it makes sense because what I've seen people do is they think, oh, well, God, our audience is white, so let's try to diversify the audience. And then it's like, let's get a more diverse audience to see a monoculture on stage, and in which they don't see themselves on stage. Most of the audience is sitting there. It's like, oh, these jokes aren't. None of these people understand the world that I'm from, and so their jokes are coming from us. You get it. So.
It actually
Okay.
reminds me, just I'll give you a quick sidebar. This is a fun anecdote that perfectly illustrates what you're just talking about. Dad's Garage was invited to this retreat because we'd been awarded some grant to work on a project. And part of the way the retreat works is there's all these different organizations, all of which are like notable in their, they've all been awarded this, grant. So we were at this retreat with a handful of arts organizations from around the country. And this one company, the artistic director came to me and said, like, what is he's like, Dad's Garage gets young audiences. What is the secret? What do we have to do to get young audiences? And I was like, it's really easy. All you have to do is program stuff that they want to see. And he was like, okay, but what else? Like, basically saying, like, I'm not going to do that, but what else can I do to get young audiences? And it just reminded me of what you were just talking about, where it's like, that's not going to work, right?
That's amazing.
He literally was like, he just wants to get young people to come see his like Shakespeare play or something. Right. And I'm like, okay, good luck, man.
It's funny in marketing, of course, when people are like, yeah, how do I get people to buy? Well, sell something they want to buy. No, but how do I get them to like show up to my like weird tantric shamanic, sound healing cacao ceremony thing? It's like, does anyone want it? Is anyone looking for it? Is there a demand? Have you seen like wanted posters around town for this? Has anyone even told you that they're looking? Of course there isn't. And the same thing with t-shirts. People, they get really excited about a t-shirt design. They make 100 of them and nobody cares. Nobody wants it versus, what was it? It was that website that sold t-shirts, and they never printed a t-shirt. They had a rating system. They invited the public base, come rate the designs and like, let us know which are the coolest. And the ones that got 5 stars, those are the ones that got printed. And if it didn't get 5 stars, it didn't get printed. So they were like a $30 million company with a $0 marketing budget. Because they just sold cool shit that people actually wanted because they asked. They actually said, what do you think is great? Like, we know what we think is cool, but this is questionable in its commercial viability. Every once in a while you hit a mark, but sometimes you don't. Okay, so you enter Dad's Garage. You see the situation, you say, okay, we've got to diversify. That's got to start on stage. So that's not an uncommon experience. I mean, I've heard that from artistic directors. I've seen that in companies. There's an awareness. They get it. We need to diversify, and they fail. And year after year, they fail and they struggle with it. So what did you do? Just walk us through the steps you went through.
Well, there was this degree of trial and error because I have not had the opportunity to move to a new community with its own like history and culture and try to make like pretty major changes. So I didn't have a roadmap. I was just kind of going on instinct. So the first thing I did was I started a rookie program like we had at Rapid Fire, which was a way of bringing in new talent. I thought, well, that makes sense. You need to diversify. Let's make an official pipeline for this. And so we started bringing in rookies and giving them, bite-sized stage time.
Yeah.
And then developing, people out of that. And that really was the kind of big step that slowly got the gears turning. But I also realized that there was like a cultural component that needed to shift because it's like, it was not a space. It wasn't a space that was welcoming to diverse voices. You know what I mean? Like, basically, if you're anything other than a white dude, it could be really intimidating. And sometimes, I would say most of the time, that was a byproduct, not the intention. It was just the byproduct. And then I would say sometimes it was the intention, And so recognizing that, and frankly having to get rid of some bad apples and to kind of reboot the culture and say like, I became kind of famous for saying, we need a culture of kindness here. Or saying, I want us to develop a culture of kindness that basically says it's cool to be kind to each other. And that was not how it was before. Not to say that people were total assholes, but there was a bit of a toughen up. If you're a bit of an asshole, it's okay. We're all just comedians shooting the shit back here,
Right.
I actually had a early days. I had a bit of a run-in with someone who I would consider to have been a bit of a bad apple, seemed pretty committed to blocking the progress that I wanted to make. And in the group setting, he had, was going on about my black agenda and so on. And I went to a friend of mine that I had just met when I got to town. One of the cool things about coming into a new arts organization in a new city is you get to meet a whole bunch of cool people, and you instantly have this little network of people you've just been introduced to. So I met with this guy who was the director of the National Black Arts Festival, and I was like, dude, I need your help, man. Like, I know that these are important changes, but I've got this guy here, and he's kind of spinning it and making me look like I'm not doing something that's good for the organization, even though I know it's good. And he's wrapping it under this idea that I have a black agenda. Or a pro-black agenda or a black agenda. And I said, what do I do with that? And he was like, what's wrong with having a pro-black agenda, man? And I was like, right. So I guess that was just a moment. I've kind of gotten us a little bit off track as far as marketing goes, but it was a moment of reframing.
Yeah.
Where it's like somebody is saying something and trying to make it seem a certain way. And it's like, just with a little bit of perspective, you come in completely supercharged. And now I was now bulletproof against this particular method of like trying to stop me, which was just by owning this idea that I had a pro-black agenda.
Well, because Kevin, all lives matter.
Oh my God, dude. Oh my God. There's so much of that bullshit that's still alive. But what what we're so lucky with, Tad, is that in our careers we have these little pockets where we kind of get to have our little domain, and we get to create the culture the way we would like to see it. We might not be able to control the rest of the world, but we can control what happens within these walls.
Right.
And that just brings us back to Dad's. Try to keep it positive. It's too easy to get down on the world right now.
Yeah.
It was a continued effort year over year, bringing in the pipeline of talent, changing the culture, getting rid of a few bad apples, and also being committed to the value, not just in those things, but in all decision making. You always have to keep it in your mind, because there's constantly going to be little tiny little decisions that tip the scales in a direction, and you have to always be nudging it in the direction you want to go. So you kind of have to keep your eye on the prize. But thankfully, like, and people might say it's too slow or whatever. It's like, well, hey man, I made it work, but like after 10 years, I took a company that was all white and all male, like let's say like above 95% in both of those categories.
Yeah.
And now it's more like 60-40 male female, and it's more like I'm gonna say like 65 35 white to non-white. And so look, I'm not saying that it's perfect by any means, but
That's a huge shift.
it's a major change, and it was sustainable. It worked. It wasn't like, oh God, it's like, no, like this group is still cohesive. These are all people that work together and create together and share a common, vibe comedically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many threads I want to follow of like, how did you keep the vibe strong, and how did you find a way towards a common culture when you're bringing together people with such different life experiences? But I won't, but just know you have my admiration, because those are very thorny things to navigate. But the thing I find myself wondering about, so it sounds like the rookie program, that was the major funnel. That was where the kind of new folks were coming in, and it was, instead of like get rid of half the people and replace them, it was like, we'll do it through attrition. People will leave as they do, and then people will come in, and we'll slowly change the culture over time. But where I find myself wondering is, were there any partnerships along the way? Were there local groups that you reached out to? Where did you find these rookies? And were there other partnerships outside of the rookie thing where you thought, okay, where can I connect with a more diverse crowd? And I'm curious if you have any stories of that, of local groups or initiatives or people that you connected with who ended up being very instrumental in bringing new people in.
Yeah, so there's like kind of a number, which is, I think, what you need to find success. It's hard to put all your eggs into one basket when it comes to like these kind of partnerships.
Yeah.
But like, for example, Kennesaw State University has an improv program called KISS, Kennesaw Improv Society something. I don't know. And so they're, young people that are like really committed to improv. And so that becomes a place that you can kind of pilfer from, right?
Yeah, totally.
We have the advantage at Dad's of being prominent in our field. So people want people want to be working here. So that helps. So you can go to Kennesaw State and pluck from there. Or there's another theater. It's just outside of Atlanta in a suburb. It's called the Aurora Theater, and it's a very notable arts organization. I just realized I'm like sitting. I should have turned on the lights. Hang on, give me like 3 seconds. I don't know if that's better or worse, but it can't be worse. It can't be worse. I just felt like I had shadows on my face. Okay, anyways, so there was Kennesaw State. There was the Aurora. They have their apprentice program. Again, these are people that are really committed.
Was Aurora, that was not a mostly white organization?
Well, they have a Latino leader.
Yeah.
But they're in a very white neighborhood, a very white community, and they are a very white organization. However, I think because the leader is a person of color, he was prioritizing bringing in all manner of voices.
Yeah.
So I just want to. I'm trying to paint an accurate picture and not just like make it too like cut and dry. Yeah. It's always more complicated than. And then, frankly, there's other improv houses in town that if I saw somebody that I thought was really good, I thought of myself for a long time like a general manager of a hockey team, right? And I'd be like, I need a good center. I need good wingers. I need good D. I need a good goal. So I'm always like looking, and obviously in my mind, like the different voices or the different like demographics that I want represented are kind of filling in those that metaphor. So it's like if I'm out watching a hockey game and I see someone score 3 goals, I'm like, maybe we should see if we can offer them a contract, So I definitely did some headhunting as well, where I would try to recruit people that I wanted. And honestly, that was sometimes the most impactful stuff. When I
Hey,
look back on the people that I sought out and pulled in, they end up being some of the people that did the best and are still with us.
it makes sense because you actually got to see them in action. You actually got to see them perform on stage in a venue and get a sense of, okay, that's how they are on stage. And yeah,
And then, of course, once you start to get going, you start getting your own momentum. That's when it gets easier.
mm,
Is when it's like you get a reputation for being the theater that is welcoming to all different voices, and people start coming because,
right.
like you were saying about, oh, this guy's the guy for headaches or migraines or whatever. It's like people say, oh, well, Dad's is the place that is, if you know, whatever. And
Yeah,
so then you start to attract, and it just gets easier. But you
yeah,
have to keep your eye on the prize. I think that's like a place where I probably could have done better.
mm,
Is I feel like once we got to a certain level of momentum, I took my foot off the gas a little bit
I hear you.
because I thought, I don't know, I think maybe I thought that it was important to let it like organically, like through its own steam, kind of evolve and develop, and not be like always under the command of this white man who is going to save the day. And I think, but in retrospect, I think maybe that was a bit of an excuse to take my foot off the gas and stop working so hard on something that was so hard.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
No, I hear you. It's well, I do notice this with clients sometimes where you know they'll do well for a while and then they start to struggle. And I say, well, how did you get those clients in the beginning? And they tell me, I say, well, why did you stop? I don't know. And literally, if they just go back and do those things, clients come in. Um, yeah.
That's
Okay.
great. I love that metaphor because it just makes me look in the mirror and go like, yeah,
Right.
that's right. Do the thing that's working. Oh my God.
And most people don't track it. I find it in marketing, you know, it's they don't even know where any of the business is coming from. They've never asked, they've never looked, and so they don't even know what to double down on. You know, they've been putting up posters for years and they're convinced the posters are the thing that do it. But if you actually ask their people, none of them have ever seen or it could be that that's where all of them came from. All of them saw the poster, but unless you know, you don't know where to invest. And similar thing with hubs. You know, if you don't, if no one's paying attention to, like in your case, where are the new performers coming from? You know, we're trying to diversify. Okay, but these new ones have come in. Yeah, where did they come from? And if nobody pays attention to that, you don't know what's working. You know, with hubs, and I've seen this where it's easy to imagine. Imagine you had experiences like this. Well, we did a fundraiser in Edmonton for this group, the Local Good, and we asked people to be table captains. So would you fill a table of 10 people for this fundraiser? And there were certain people I just thought, man, they're so connected. No problem, they're going to fill a table. And then other people was like, well, they'll bring a couple friends. And you know, a lot of the time I was right, but there were a few people who I thought would fill a table, and they brought one person. They were like able, but they just didn't have the hustle about it. And then a friend of mine who I thought she'd show up with a friend, she got like 20 people. And so it's it's good to then notice, you know, because then where that goes is if you do another fundraiser, that person who brought 20 people, you take them out for lunch and you say, thank you so much. And could you do it again? Do you think you could hit 20 again for us? You know, and you pay attention to what's working. Okay, so what you had the university club, you had the other company theater
Aurora, the apprentice program there, and there was also another. There was a couple other theaters in town that had apprentice programs as well, but they weren't as they didn't intersect with us as much. Part of
yeah.
the reason that the Aurora thing worked out was because we started doing like basically an improv module for their apprentices.
So
And it
you
wasn't
actually
like,
went to them and you did some training for their people.
yes. And then we kind of like, it culminated in like a show, a little improv show with the apprentices at Aurora. And it just let us get a good look at who might have potential.
Yeah, yeah. And were there other kind of organizations in the community or other businesses or anyone else you partnered with I mean, also for the audience to bring, a more diverse audience in.
Well, okay, so now this is like a totally separate chapter in my mind, right? Where it's like, okay, once we started to get some level of diversity in our content,
Yeah.
um, how are we able to reach new audiences? And a lot of it ended up being pretty organic, but we did find that over the years, one of the most effective tools for marketing was partnerships with other organizations that, like, for example, one of our most successful is a thing called Puppy Prov, where we partner with a local shelter and we bring the puppies on stage.
Oh my God.
And we do improv and there's puppies. And it's a fundraiser, for this. And also you can adopt the dogs at the event.
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
But that was the Humane Society, I believe. There's been so many different partnerships over the years. I might like mix up and,
Yeah.
But anyways, the point is that home run, you know what I mean? And brought in people that we might not have wanted to come see an improv show before.
Right.
And then similarly, like with a lot of different projects, like we did a play called Wrath of Khan that was all about Dragon Con and the experience of going to Dragon Con, which is this huge event here in Atlanta. It's like the origin of like con culture.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's like the Dragon Con and Comic Con are like the origins of con culture. And so it's just got such a huge following. We do Wrath of Khan, people show up in costume and they're so into it. And so we're hitting that community. Or like, we do a play, Black Nerd, which is all about the playwright was an ensemble member who basically said, like, as someone who's like into nerdy shit and is Black, man, am I like torn between two worlds that don't seem to really like know what to do with me. And so we wrote this play about what some people might consider to be a really niche kind of thing, ended up resonating hugely with, guess which communities? The nerd community and the Black community. You know what I mean? So it was, as we moved forward, it was project by project, event by event, finding the partnerships that really connect to the content and then using that to spread the word. As these people become your ambassadors. Oh, they're posting about it. They're talking about it. They're bringing 20 friends,
Totally. Man, if you got more examples to keep going with, these are gold. This is just to pause to say, this is exactly what I'm talking about with hub marketing is, so a lot of my work with clients is helping them figure out a niche. And sometimes there's a few niches they have, but, ideally they pick a niche and then it's like, who are the potential partners? And so one of the examples I often give in workshops is there was a woman who sold cloth diapers. And I was talking a lot about doing workshops as a way of promotion. She said, but I can't do a workshop for cloth diapers. I said, why not? She said, because you either already use them, so why would you go to a workshop about them? Or you think they're fucking disgusting, so why would you go to a workshop about them? Like, it's a non-starter. And I said, okay. I said, but I bet you could do a workshop on natural parenting, and then you find all these people to partner who themselves have a following, and you've got a lactation specialist, a doula, a midwife, you've got a infant massage specialist, how to detoxify your home, nonviolent communication for you and your all that, and you sneak the cloth diapers in the middle. It's like, you can be a hippie and be sneaky about things. So they don't see it coming, but then they're there and they say, oh, wow, I never thought about that. I always thought those were terrible, but now I see it's not that hard or whatever. And so this idea of partnerships to me is so big, and I see so many entrepreneurs trying to go it alone. They tried it would be like, they have a theater company and they're just trying to fill it through their own email list, which as we know, a lot of companies didn't even have for a while. they, they're trying to just do it through their own steam, through their own friends and family, and then that maxes out, and then they put all this pressure on their clients, which I guess would be like a theater company. Please, would just tell your friends, bring friends to the show, and but then it just exhausts itself at a certain point. And so this idea of bringing partnerships to bring fresh things in all the time, because and both are rejuvenating. It also makes me think about plants, how like with corn, I think the Mayans, when they would plant the corn, if I remember right, there'd be like the newer kind of corn seeds that would be planted in the middle, but on the outside they'd be planting the older corn, like the more ancient varieties. But they would cross, the old would kind of bolster the new, but the new would revivify the old, and you would get these. It would be stronger as a result of
cross fertilization, right? Like it's
yeah.
like you're yeah. As far as like other stories in this way, I thought of one that I think you might enjoy.
Okay.
When we were fundraising, so we lost our building in 2013. This is the building that the company had since 1995. I was just a few years into running being artistic director when we lost our building, which was very much our identity. Yeah. And there was a lot of question as to like, how would the organization survive this? We started trying to fundraise for a new building. And if you've never done a big capital campaign, fundraising campaign, the conventional approach is to raise about 80% of it privately, and then you go public with the last 20%, and it kind of feels like attainable at that point. So then people will actually open up their wallets and contribute. But it's important, you got to get that private momentum going first, and that's done through foundations or corporate donors, or like big pocket, individual donors, things like this. So we started going around to the foundations here in Atlanta, asking for money for our capital campaign to have our own building. And their answer was no. And the reason that was most often given was, y'all do improv, y'all do comedy, and we consider that entertainment and not art, not art and culture.
Wow.
Which was disheartening. But also an opportunity to, it's like when you have a strong reaction to something, it can be an opportunity to harness that reaction. So I was deeply offended. And I was like, I am going to make you eat those words. Wow. You mother, I'm sorry, this is a professional stream. So for the next like 18 months, I made it or not even 18, yeah, maybe a year, 18 months. I made it my mission to partner with the most highfalutin organizations in town for a number of events. So specifically, the Atlanta Ballet and the Atlanta Opera were the two that really landed. And we started doing improvised opera stuff and improvised ballet stuff. It started really small. Like our improvised opera game was actually super fun. And it was just, we would have these two opera singers, and they would have screens of just screens from like synced from a computer. And then we'd have improvisers, and they would type what they would want the singers to sing. And then the hosts would like throw to the opera singers and say like, well, here's another clip from this famous new opera that came out, and it had some audience suggestion or whatever, So they'd say, now let's see this scene, and they'd throw, and then the improvisers would, and then the opera singers would sing these like outrageous things. Anyways, the point is, it was just a dumb little game, but it absolutely worked, brought down the house every time. Suddenly now we're hosting events for the Atlanta Opera. Their people are at our shows. There's this mingling. They're feeling like we're revitalizing their form. Meanwhile, they are making us look really good to these arts and culture organizations. And same thing with the ballet. And that ended up reversing the position of those foundations. When we went back to them for money, they supported us. And many, not many, but some of these artists that we worked with from the opera, from the ballet, they are still with the company. They fell in love with improv to the extent that they started hanging out all the time. And some of them are now regular members of our group, which has just continued to like round out kind of the cool, different mishmash of artists we have we're collaborating together. So that's another example where it kind of goes beyond marketing and into like just all kinds of value, you know?
Right. Oh man, Kevin, that's gold. That's such an incredible example. It's so wild. It blows my mind. In marketing, people will say, like they're a yoga teacher, and they'll say, "Well, the market's kind of tapped out, you know." And it's like they, I got this metaphor from a woman, Lynn Twist, who wrote a book called The Soul of Money, and she said, because she was one of the founding members, I think, of this group, the Hunger Project, and they were this, at the time, upstart hunger organization, and they wanted to end chronic persistent hunger in the world. That was their mission. But there was already so many hunger organizations, and so when they came on, people looked at them like, well, you know, there's this pie of funding, and we've kind of got it divvied up amongst us, and we have a truce now, but you're coming in and you want some of the pie. And their thing, they said, we don't want your pie. We want to make a bigger pie for everybody. Everybody will win from us being on the scene. We're not here to snatch your piece. We're here to make something even more. And I see this where, you know, in, let's say, yoga, people, well, you're like, yeah, if you just do your generic yoga class, right, it's tapped out. You know, you've hit a limit. But I've seen, there's a guy, Tommy Rosen, does Recovery 2.0. It's yoga for the 12-step programs, yoga for depression. A woman, Tina Veer in Toronto, does yoga for round bodies, because people with rounder bodies don't have a good time at most yoga classes. Ganja yoga, naked yoga, punk rock yoga. A friend of mine did dubstep yoga, where you'd just be dancing to dubstep, and then you'd like get down into shavasana, you'd lie down for a while, then you do your yoga, and then you dance your way out of it at the end to dubstep. And he had this whole, he could go on about the importance of low frequency beats and what this does. And you know, there's so, and with each of these, I've seen, you know, like yoga for Christians, where they start with a little bit of wine as like a sacrament before and after. There's so many ways of tweaking the work and reaching new people. And then every one of those, of course, new partnerships unfurl. I've seen this so many times. As soon as people even find a niche to explore, they've been stuck on marketing. They can't think of partnerships. Nothing exists. And as soon as they think, like with you, it's like, wait a minute, we're not high art? Well, then that gives a playground. It's like, okay, well, who do they think is the high art? Great, we're going to go partner with them.
Yes, and to me, it exposed what I would now consider to be like a principle that I believe in, which is in as far as finding partnerships, which is find people that are radically different from you. That is where there's going to be a lot of potential. Or find people that at first glance, it almost seems like crazy. Like that doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, that's where you're going to find something. If you try to go to somebody that's just one notch over from you, you're too close. There's not enough space in between you to fill with interesting things.
I love that. I've even seen that within businesses, that some of the most interesting business names I've come across are inherently oxymorons. And you know, I realized after the marketing for Hippies, it's whenever the business name came because I used to be just tadhargrave.com. I called my business Radical Business. I didn't care about the name. It didn't mean much to me. But then people say, what do you do? And I say, marketing for Hippies. And then they would laugh and they say, oh, that's fine. They really need that, you know, or how ironic or whatever. And so then I just decided one day that was going to be my business name. Or I've seen like zenbitchslap.com or buddhistbootcamp.com. You know, it's like a fitness trainer, but he's Buddhist. But taking these worlds that are so different, and even within the same business, merging them. And then it's really interesting because you take these worlds as like, you would never think of them together, but it's way more interesting when they're together. And then inherent in that, like you're saying, these two completely different worlds, well, now you have two completely different sets of hubs. so for me, I suppose generically, I've got the kind of marketing hubs. I could go to my colleagues in the marketing world, and then I've got all the hippie hubs on the other side. It's like in the black nerd thing you're saying, well, there's the black community and then there's the nerd community. That's inherent. Like it's these oxymorons. So I love, that's just completely been my experience is, but that's interesting. I haven't thought about that
Well,
as much with hub marketing.
if you want me to really blow your mind, I'll tell you. Basically, this has been the principle that I've been thinking about, insofar as like it underlies everything. Like not like improv and art.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk. It's like comedy, Odd Couple. You know what I mean?
Right.
Neat Freak, Messy. You put those two together, and the tension between those two things is what all the joy and goodness comes out of. Or if you think about like a narrative, you
Right.
know, you Zero to Hero, Rags to Riches. You only get those stories if you pull from both. You know what I'm saying? But it's like everything. It's like the tension of a scene, of an emotional scene. If someone's just crying, it's not that good. But if there's a tension between them crying and holding back that emotion, and we're riding between those two things, that's where it's good. It's like literally everything.
Wow.
And that's the beam I've been on for the last few years.
I love, yeah, it's not a compelling story where it's like, meet John, a middle-class man who by the end of this movie will be slightly higher middle class.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a ride.
Yeah, you always try to find the opposites and pull them together, and that's where the good stuff happens.
Oh man, that's a perfect note to end on, I think. Kevin, thank you so much. I miss you. It's so good to see your
I
face.
miss you, man. And let me just say for all of your people watching that uh, I learned so much of like the foundation of marketing and how to like operate an entertainment business from you when I was young and we were working at Rapid Fire together. And so if I have any valuable thoughts when it pertains to that kind of stuff, it's because of the seeds that you planted in my brain
Oh,
20 years ago. So thank you.
oh, very kind of you. Okay, well, pass on my love to Amber.
Will do.
And I hope this was useful for everyone. My God, this is such good thoughts on hub marketing. Okay, well, that's it, everyone. Take care.